The ship was dark. The walls were not made of metal like human ships. They looked like glass, but they were harder than steel. Blue light moved inside them like blood in veins. Captain Jake Miller moved slowly through the corridor. His boots made no sound. He had trained for 20 years to walk like a ghost. Behind him, Lieutenant Emma Cole held her rifle close to her chest. Her eyes moved left and right, watching every shadow. She was the best shooter in the entire Earth Defense Corps. She had killed enemies on 6 different planets. But this place made her nervous. The air smelled wrong. It smelled like flowers and death mixed together. Sergeant Ryan Park was at the back. He carried a medical bag and a pistol. He was a doctor first and a soldier second. But in this war, everyone had to fight. He had saved hundreds of lives. He had also taken many. That was the way of war. The 3 of them moved deeper into the alien ship. Their mission was simple. Get inside. Find information about the enemy. Get out. Command had told them it would be easy. Command was wrong. Jake raised his fist. The signal to stop. Emma and Ryan froze immediately. Ahead, the corridor split into 2 paths. Jake looked at the small screen on his wrist. The map showed nothing. They were in unknown territory now, left or right. Emma whispered. Her voice was barely louder than a breath. Jake thought for a moment. His gut told him to go left. He had learned to trust his gut a long time ago. It had saved his life more times than he could count. Left, he said. They moved again. The blue light in the walls grew brighter. That was not a good sign. Brighter light meant more power. More power meant they were getting closer to something important. Something the aliens wanted to protect. Then Jake heard it. A soft sound. Like wind moving through leaves. But there were no leaves here. There was no wind. He knew what that sound meant. They know we are here, he said. The attack came fast. The walls themselves seemed to open. Tall figures stepped out of the light. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Their skin was pale white, almost glowing. They had 4 arms and eyes that shone like silver coins. The Valari, the enemy that had conquered 100 worlds. Jake did not wait. He fired his rifle. The first alien fell. Then the second. Emma was already shooting. Her bullets found their targets with perfect aim. Ryan dropped his medical bag and pulled his pistol. He fired into the crowd of enemies, but there were too many. For every alien that fell, 3 more appeared. They came from the walls, from the ceiling, from everywhere. Their weapons made no sound, but Jake saw his soldiers fall on other missions from those silent guns. An alien grabbed Jake from behind. 4 arms wrapped around him like steel cables. Jake head-butted backward. He felt the alien's face break. It screamed and let go. Jake spun around and shot it in the chest. Emma was fighting hand-to-hand now. Her rifle was empty. She had pulled her knife. An alien twice her size swung at her. She ducked under its arm and drove her blade into its throat. Blue blood sprayed across her helmet. There are too many, Ryan shouted. He was bleeding from a cut on his arm. But he kept fighting. He kept shooting. Jake knew they could not win. But humans did not surrender. That was not in their nature. They would fight until they could not fight anymore. That was the human way. He killed another alien. Then another. His rifle clicked empty. He threw it at an enemy's face and pulled his pistol. Keep fighting. Keep moving. Never stop. Something hit him in the side. Pain exploded through his body. He looked down and saw a blade sticking out of his armor. An alien had stabbed him. Jake grabbed the alien's arm and broke it. The creature screamed. Jake pulled the blade out of his own body and used it to kill its owner. Blood poured from the wound. His blood, red and warm. But Jake did not fall. He could not fall. His team needed him. 40-7 aliens. That is how many they killed. 3 humans against 47 of the galaxy's greatest warriors. It should have been impossible. But humans did not believe in impossible. Finally, they fell. Not from death. From exhaustion. From blood loss. From the sheer number of enemies. Energy chains wrapped around their wrists. Jake tried to stand, but his body refused. For the first time in his life, his legs would not obey. The aliens stood around them. They were not cheering. They were not celebrating. They were staring. Jake saw something in their silver eyes. Something he had seen before in the eyes of other enemies. Fear. What are these creatures? One of them whispered. They killed 47 of us, another said. Just 3 of them. Jake laughed. It hurt to laugh. Every breath felt like fire. But he laughed anyway. Should have sent more, he said. The aliens dragged them through the ship. Jake tried to remember the path. Left, right, left, straight down. His training told him to always know the way out. But his mind was getting foggy. He was losing too much blood. Emma walked beside him. Her face was covered in blue alien blood. Her own red blood dripped from a dozen cuts. But her eyes were still sharp. Still angry. She was not done fighting. She was just waiting for the next chance. Ryan was the worst. A deep wound crossed his chest. He was pale. Too pale. But he was still alive. Still breathing. Still moving forward. The corridor ended at a massive door. It was made of the same crystal as the walls, but it glowed with golden light. Important. This was somewhere important. The door opened slowly. Bright light poured out. Jake squinted against it. When his eyes adjusted, he saw the biggest room he had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered with strange writing that glowed and moved, and at the far end, sitting on a throne made of living crystal, was the most beautiful and terrifying creature Jake had ever seen. The Queen. She looked at them with eyes that held 3,000 years of power. 3,000 years of conquest. 3,000 years of watching species kneel before her. Jake met her gaze. He did not kneel. He did not bow. He stood there, bleeding and broken, and he stared right back at her. The Queen smiled. "Bring them closer," she said. Her voice was like music and thunder. "I want to see these fascinating creatures." The guards pushed them forward. Jake stumbled, but did not fall. He would not fall. Not here. Not in front of her. The war had just begun. Queen Alara had seen many things in her long life. She had watched stars die. She had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a beach. She had conquered 100 worlds and made 1,000 species kneel before her throne. Nothing surprised her anymore. Until now. She studied the 3 creatures standing before her. They were small. Smaller than her warriors. They had only 2 arms, and their skin was a strange brown and pink color. They were covered in blood. Most of it was blue. Valari blood. But some of it was red. Their own blood. The guards had told her what happened. 47 of her elite soldiers. Dead. Killed by these 3 small creatures. She had not believed it at first. But the bodies did not lie. 47 of her best warriors lay cold and still in the corridors of her ship. The one in front was clearly their leader. A male. He stood straight despite the wound in his side. Blood dripped onto her crystal floor. But he did not seem to notice. Or perhaps he did not care. His helmet was cracked, and through the crack she could see one eye. It was brown like earth, and it was staring at her without any fear. The female beside him was smaller, but no less dangerous. Blue blood covered her armor like paint. She had killed many tonight. Elara could see it in the way she stood, ready, waiting, like a predator, pretending to be prey. The third one was wounded badly. He should be dead. Any Velari with wounds like his would have died long ago. But he was still standing, still breathing, still alive through pure stubbornness. Fascinating, Elara said. She leaned forward on her throne. The living crystal beneath her shifted and moved. You killed 47 of my elite guard. 3 of you. Against 47. The female spat blood onto the polished floor. The red drops stood out against the white crystal like rubies on snow. Should have sent more, she said. The entire room went silent. Elara's advisors gasped. Her guards raised their weapons. No one spoke to the queen like that. No one in 3,000 years. But Elara raised her hand. The guards lowered their weapons. The advisors stepped back. She was not angry. She was interested. She rose from her throne and walked down the steps. Her long white robes trailed behind her like clouds. She was tall, much taller than the humans. Her forearms moved gracefully as she walked. She stopped in front of the leader, the one called Jake. Your species is new to us, she said. We found your little planet only recently. So young, so small. We thought you would be easy to conquer, like all the others. Jake said nothing. He just watched her with that unafraid eye. Elara smiled. It was not a kind smile. My telepaths cannot read your minds. Did you know that? Every species we have ever met, we could read like books. Their thoughts, their fears, their secrets, all open to us. But you, she tilted her head. Your minds are chaos. Noise and fire and something we cannot understand. She reached out with her mind. She had done this 1,000,000 times before. A simple touch. A gentle push into the thoughts of her enemy. She would see their fears, their weaknesses, their breaking points, but the human's mind was like a storm. Images flashed so fast she could barely see them. War, fire, love, loss, pain, joy, anger, hope, 1,000 emotions crashing against each other like waves in a hurricane. There was no order, no peace. Just endless, beautiful chaos. And beneath all of it, burning like a sun, was something she had never felt before. Something that made her pull back in shock. Defiance. Not the defiance of hope. Not the defiance of someone who thought they might win. This was different. This was the defiance of someone who had already accepted death and simply refused to stop fighting. It was terrifying. It was magnificent. What are you? She whispered. Jake finally spoke. His voice was rough, tired, but strong. We are human. Elara turned to her chief advisor, a old Velari named Lord Marcus. He had served her for 500 years. He had never failed her. Tell me about these humans, she commanded. Marcus bowed low. He accessed the data screens floating near the throne. Information scrolled across them in glowing letters. The humans come from a small planet called Earth, he said. 3rd planet from a yellow star. Their recorded history is only about 10,000 years old. They are children compared to us. And yet they killed 47 of my warriors, Elara said. Marcus continued, his voice uncertain now. Their planet has extreme conditions. Temperature changes of 60 degrees between seasons. They have survived ice ages that covered half their world. Diseases that killed millions of them. Wars among themselves that killed even more. Amma laughed. It was a harsh sound. You make it sound bad. That's just Tuesday for us. Elara ignored her. Continue, she told Marcus. They are. Resilient, Marcus said. He seemed to have trouble finding the right words. They heal from wounds that would kill us. They can function without sleep for days. without food for weeks. They form emotional bonds so strong they will die for complete strangers. They are pack animals who have somehow become the apex predators of their world. They do not have claws, another advisor said. They do not have natural weapons. How did they become apex predators? They made weapons, Marcus said quietly. They could not fly, so they built machines to fly. They could not survive the cold, so they made fire. They could not run fast, so they invented vehicles. Whatever they could not do, they invented a way to do it. Ilara looked back at the humans. They were watching her, waiting, still not afraid. "You are injured," she said to Jake. "That wound in your side is fatal. You should be dead already." Jake shrugged. The movement made more blood flow from his wound. "Been dead before. Didn't take." She did not understand what he meant, but she understood the tone. He was not joking. He was not bragging. He was simply stating a fact. He had faced death many times, and every time he had won. Ilara walked around them slowly. She studied them from every angle. The female tracked her with her eyes, ready to attack even in chains. The wounded one was still standing through pure will. And the leader stood like he was the one in control. The leader stood like he was the one in control, like she was the prisoner, not him. "I have conquered 100 worlds," Ilara said. "I have made 1,000 species bow before me. All of them, eventually, they break. They beg. They surrender. They accept that resistance is pointless." She stopped in front of Jake. "Will you break, human?" Jake met her eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke. Just 4 words. But those 4 words changed everything. "Come and find out." Ilara felt something she had not felt in centuries. Her heart beat faster. Her 4 hands clenched. Was this excitement? Fear? She could not tell. She turned away from them. She needed to think. These creatures were different. Every instinct she had, built over 3,000 years of rule, told her that these were not ordinary enemies. "Take them to the holding cells," she ordered. "Clean their wounds. Keep them alive. I am not done with them yet." The guards moved forward. They grabbed the humans roughly. But even as they were dragged away, the humans did not cry out. They did not beg. They did not even seem worried. Jake looked back over his shoulder. His cracked helmet reflected the golden light of the throne room. Through the crack, his brown eye met Ilara's silver ones. He smiled. It was not a defeated smile. It was not a hopeful smile. It was the smile of a predator who knew that, sooner or later, the tables would turn. Ilara sat back on her throne. For the first time in 3,000 years, she did not know what to do. These humans were dangerous. More dangerous than anything she had ever faced. And something told her that this was just the beginning. 3 days passed. 3 days in the holding cell. 3 days of waiting. 3 days of healing. The Valari had done as their queen ordered. They cleaned the humans' wounds. They gave them food and water. The food tasted strange, but Jake ate it anyway. His body needed fuel to repair itself. That was all that mattered. Emma sat in the corner of the cell. She had spent the first day sleeping, the second day exercising, the third day planning. Jake knew that look in her eyes. She was thinking about escape, about revenge, about all the aliens she would kill when she got free. Ryan was doing better. The wound on his chest was healing. It would leave a terrible scar, but Ryan already had many scars. One more would not matter. He checked his own bandages every few hours. Old habits from his medical training. The cell was made of the same crystal as the rest of the ship. It glowed with soft blue light. There were no bars, no locks. Just a field of energy that blocked the doorway. Jake had touched it once. The pain had knocked him unconscious for an hour. He did not touch it again. On the morning of the fourth day, the energy field dropped. The Lari guards entered the cell. 12 of them. Far more than necessary for 3 wounded prisoners. They had learned their lesson. "The Queen wants to see you," one guard said. His voice was cold, hateful. He had probably lost friends in the corridor battle. Jake stood up slowly. His wounds still hurt, but he could walk. He could fight if he needed to. He hoped he would not need to. Not yet. They were led through the ship again. Different corridors this time. These walls had pictures carved into them. Stories of Valari conquests. Jake saw planets burning. Species in chains. Monuments built to celebrate victory. The Valari had been doing this for a very long time. The throne room was the same as before. Golden light. High ceiling. Living crystal. And on the throne, Queen Ilara waited. But this time, she was not alone. Around her stood dozens of Valari. Advisors, scientists, generals. They all watched as the humans were brought forward. They all whispered to each other in their musical language. Ilara raised her hand. Silence fell immediately. "Leave us," she said. Her advisors looked shocked. The generals stepped forward to protest. But one look from the Queen silenced them all. One by one, they filed out of the room. Even the guards left. Soon, only the Queen and the 3 humans remained. "You are brave or stupid," Emma said. "Being alone with us." Ilara smiled. "I am neither. I am curious." She stood from her throne and walked toward them. "I have spent 3 days reading about your species. Everything my spies have gathered. Everything our sensors have recorded. And I still do not understand you." She stopped in front of Jake. "Your wound should have killed you. My doctors say you lost too much blood. Your organs should have failed. But here you stand, walking, talking, almost healthy." Jake said nothing. "My telepaths have tried again and again to read your mind," Ilara continued. "They have all failed. 2 of them are now in medical care. Your thoughts are too chaotic, too violent. It hurts them to even try." Still, Jake remained silent. Ilara leaned closer. Her silver eyes were inches from his cracked helmet. "I need to see you. Really see you. Not through broken glass and metal." She straightened up. "Remove your helmet." The words hung in the air like smoke. Jake felt Emma tense beside him. He felt Ryan take a small step forward. They knew what the helmet meant. Jake's helmet was more than protection. It was keeping him alive. The bioseal inside was connected to his damaged lung. It was helping him breathe. Removing it could kill him. Or it could leave him so weak that he could not fight. But Jake also knew something else. He knew that the Queen was not just asking to see his face. She was testing him. She wanted to see if he would refuse. If he would show weakness. If he would beg. Humans did not beg. Jake reached up with both hands. His fingers found the helmet's release. Emma grabbed his arm. "Jake, no," she whispered. "Your lung." He looked at her. In his eyes, she saw something she recognized. The same look he had when he ordered a charge against impossible odds. The same look he had when he carried wounded soldiers through enemy fire. The look of a man who had made his decision. "Trust me," he said. Emma let go of his arm. Her jaw was tight with anger. But she stepped back. She trusted him. She always had. Jake pressed the release. There was a soft hiss as the seal broke. He felt the pressure change immediately. His chest hurt. Breathing became harder. But he did not stop. He pulled the helmet off his head and held it at his side. For the first time, Queen Ilara saw a human face. She froze. Jake's face was covered in scars. Not new ones from this mission. Old ones. A thick line ran across his forehead from a battle on Mars. 3 parallel marks crossed his left cheek from an alien beast on a jungle planet. His nose had been broken at least twice. His jaw was strong, covered in rough stubble. His hair was short and dark, spotted with gray. But it was not the scars that made Ilara freeze. It was not his rough appearance, or his damaged features. It was his eyes. She had looked into millions of eyes over 3,000 years. She had seen every emotion possible. Fear, anger, hope, despair, madness, surrender. She thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. Jake's eyes were brown. Simple brown. The color of earth and wood and old things. But inside those brown eyes was something she had never encountered. Something that made her ancient heart skip a beat. Complete and total defiance. Not the defiance of hope. Jake knew he might die here. He had accepted that. Not the defiance of anger. He was beyond anger. He was beyond fear. He was beyond everything that made other species break. This was the defiance of a creature who simply refused to surrender. No matter what. For any reason, ever. And there was something else. Something deeper. Ilara reached out with her mind again. She touched the edge of Jake's thoughts. Pain hit her immediately, but she pushed through it. She saw memories. Flashes of a life lived at war. But not just Jake's war. All of humanity's wars. She saw humans fighting in mud with swords. Humans fighting in trenches with guns. Humans fighting in space with lasers. Generation after generation of conflict. Each war should have ended them. Each war should have broken them, but it never did. She saw humans starving and still sharing their food with each other. She saw humans freezing and still giving their coats to children. She saw humans dying and still fighting with their last breath. Not for victory. Not for survival. Just because they refused to stop. What are you? She whispered. Her voice was shaking. Queen Ilara of the Valari Empire, unshaken for 3,000 years, was shaking. Jake coughed. Blood came up. His lung was failing without the helmet's support. But he stayed standing. He looked at the queen with those terrible, wonderful, defiant eyes. We are human, he said, and we do not kneel. Ilara stepped back. Her 4 hands were trembling. She turned away from him so he would not see her face. She needed a moment. She needed to think. In 3,000 years, she had never felt this way. She had conquered species that were stronger, faster, smarter than humans. She had broken empires that had ruled for longer than humans had existed. But none of them had eyes like that. None of them had that chaos in their minds. None of them had that stupid, beautiful, terrifying refusal to submit. For the first time in 3,000 years, Queen Ilara was afraid, not of what the humans would do to her, but of what she could not do to them, because she realized, in that moment, looking at Jake's bleeding, defiant face, that there was no way to break these creatures. No torture, no threat. No amount of force would make them kneel. They would fight until they died. And even death might not stop them. Put your helmet back on, she said quietly. Her voice was different now, softer, almost respectful. You needed to breathe. Jake watched her for a long moment. Then he slowly raised the helmet and put it back on. The bioseal connected. Air flowed into his damaged lung. He could breathe again, but he did not thank her. He did not bow. He just stood there, waiting, watching, ready. The queen sat back on her throne. Her advisors would want answers. Her generals would want orders. Her empire would want to know what to do about these humans. She had no answers to give them. Not yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Everything was about to change. Queen Ilara did not sleep that night. She sat in her private chambers, surrounded by floating screens filled with data. Every piece of information the Valari had ever gathered about humans glowed before her eyes. She read it all, twice. The more she read, the more disturbed she became. Humans had no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no venom. Their skin was soft. Their bones were brittle compared to Valari bones. They were slow. They were weak. By every measurement the Valari used to judge species, humans should have been easy prey. But they were not prey. They were predators. The data showed their history. Ice ages that covered their world in frozen death. Humans survived. Plagues that killed half their population. Humans survived. Wars that burned their cities to ash. Humans survived. Disasters, famines, floods, droughts. Again and again, the universe tried to kill them. Again and again, they refused to die. And they did not just survive. They grew stronger. Every challenge they faced, they overcame. Every weakness they had, they fixed with tools and technology. They could not see in the dark, so they made light. They could not run fast, so they made machines. They could not fly, so they built ships. They could not live in space, so they created habitats. Now they were spreading across the stars. Slowly, carefully, but unstoppably. Valara called for her chief scientist, a young Valari named Lady Susan. She was brilliant but nervous. She had never been summoned to the Queen's private chambers before. "Tell me about their biology," Ilara commanded. Susan pulled up her own data screens. Her 4 hands moved quickly, organizing information. Humans are carbon-based life forms, similar to us in many ways. 2 legs, 2 arms, bilateral symmetry. But there are differences. What differences? Susan took a deep breath. Their healing rate is extraordinary. Minor wounds close within days. Major wounds that would be fatal to us, they survive. Their bodies have backup systems. Multiple organs that can take over if one fails. Their blood clots faster than any species we have studied. Ilara thought about Jake, the wound in his side. He should have died from blood loss. But he was still standing. There is more, Susan continued. Their endurance is unlike anything we have seen. They can maintain physical activity for hours without rest. Some of them run for entire days without stopping. They call it a marathon. They do it for fun. For fun? Ilara repeated. She did not understand. Yes, my queen. They seem to enjoy pushing themselves to their limits. They climb mountains that could kill them. They swim in cold water that would stop our hearts. They fight each other for sport. They are addicted to challenge. Ilara waved her hand. The data screens changed. They showed images of human soldiers, men and women in armor, carrying weapons, standing in lines that stretched to the horizon. What about their military? She asked. Susan's face became even more nervous. That is the most concerning part, my queen. Human soldiers are unlike any warriors we have faced. They train constantly. They push themselves beyond pain, beyond exhaustion. And they fight for reasons we do not fully understand. What reasons? Abstract concepts. Freedom, honor, love, duty. They will die for these ideas. They will die for each other. We have seen soldiers throw themselves on explosives to save their companions. We have seen pilots crash their ships into enemy vessels rather than surrender. They have a word for it. Sacrifice. Ilara was silent for a long moment. She had conquered species that were strong. Species that were smart. Species that had technology far beyond humans. But none of them had this. This willingness to die for something greater than themselves. There is one more thing, Susan said quietly. She looked afraid to speak. Tell me. Our telepaths have studied human minds. The ones who survived, at least. They found something strange. Human minds are divided. They have different parts that often disagree with each other. Logic and emotion, fear and courage, caution and recklessness, all existing in the same brain at the same time. That sounds like weakness, Elara said. Susan shook her head. No, my queen, that is their strength. Because of this division, they can feel fear and act bravely at the same time. They can know something is dangerous and do it anyway. They can understand death and still choose to fight. No other species can do this. We either feel fear and retreat or feel courage and attack. Humans can do both simultaneously. Elara stood up suddenly. Susan stepped back in fright. But the queen was not angry. She was thinking. Bring me the prisoners, she said. All three of them, now. An hour later, Jake, Emma, and Ryan stood before her again. They looked better than before. The Valari medical technology had healed most of their wounds. Jake's lung was still damaged, but he breathed easier now. I have questions, Elara said. You will answer them. Emma laughed. It was not a polite laugh. Or what? You will torture us? Kill us. We have been trained to resist torture. And death does not scare us. I know, Elara said. I have read about your resistance training. I have seen records of humans who were tortured for years and never broke. I am not going to torture you. I am going to talk to you. This surprised them. Jake's eyes narrowed behind his helmet. He was waiting for the trick. Your species destroys itself constantly, Elara said. Wars, pollution, weapons that can kill millions. How are you not extinct? Ryan answered. He was the calmest of the three. The doctor. The thinker. Because we are too stubborn to die. Every time we knock ourselves down, we get back up. Every time we create a problem, we solve it. Usually by creating new problems, but we solve those too. Eventually, that is not logical, Elara said. No, Ryan agreed. It is not. But logic is not our greatest strength. Hope is. No matter how bad things get, humans hope for better. And because we hope, we keep trying. And because we keep trying, we sometimes succeed. Elara turned to Emma. You killed 17 of my soldiers. You are smaller than them, weaker. How? Emma shrugged. Training, anger, stubbornness. Pick one. But why fight at all? You were captured. The battle was lost. Why not surrender? Emma's eyes grew cold. Because surrender is death. Maybe not right away, but eventually. When you stop fighting, you stop living. That is not a human way to exist. Finally, Elara faced Jake. He'd been silent until now, watching, waiting. His brown eyes were still visible through the crack in his helmet. You are their leader, she said. You made the decision to fight when you could have hidden. You made the decision to remove your helmet when it could have killed you. Why? Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low, serious. Because that is who I am. I do not hide. I do not run. I do not surrender. I face what comes and I deal with it. That is what being human means. We might be small. We might be young. We might be weak compared to you. But we do not give up, ever. And that is why, eventually, we will win. Elara felt a chill run through her body. It was not a threat. It was a promise. And something in his voice made her believe it. You cannot defeat us, she said. Our empire spans 1,000 worlds. Our fleet numbers in the millions. Your species has barely left your home planet. Jake smiled behind his helmet. You conquered 100 species. How many of them are still fighting you? How many rebellions do you crush every year? How many resources do you spend keeping your empire together? Elara did not answer. She did not need to. The answer was in her silence. "We are patient," Jake continued. "We will watch. We will learn. We will grow. And one day, when you are tired, when your empire is stretched too thin, when your people have forgotten how to fight for themselves, we will still be here. Still angry. Still stubborn. Still refusing to quit." He stepped forward. The guards raised their weapons. But Ilara raised her hand, stopping them. "You cannot break us," Jake said. "You cannot scare us. You cannot outwork us. Because no matter what you do, we will adapt. We will overcome. We will endure. That is what humans do. That is all we have ever done." Ilara looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something she had not done in 1,000 years. She nodded with respect. "I believe you," she said quietly. "And that is what terrifies me." Queen Ilara stood before the High Council of the Valari Empire. The chamber was ancient. Its walls had witnessed the rise and fall of dynasties. Its crystal pillars had heard the declarations of 100 wars. Today, it would hear something new. 12 High Lords sat in a circle around her. They were the most powerful Valari in the Empire. Each commanded fleets that could destroy planets. Each had ruled for centuries. Each expected the Queen to announce the extermination of the human species. "The humans must be destroyed," Lord Marcus said. He was the eldest of the council. His voice was cold and certain. "They killed our warriors. They invaded our ship. They must be made an example." The other lords nodded in agreement. Murmurs of approval filled the chamber. This was how it had always been done. Species that resisted were erased. It was simple. It was efficient. It had worked for 3,000 years. Ilara raised her hand. Silence fell. "I have studied the humans," she said. "I have spoken with their leaders. I have looked into their minds. And I have made a decision." The lords leaned forward. They expected fire and destruction. They expected orders for genocide. They expected the Queen to be the conqueror she had always been. "We will not destroy the humans," Ilara said. "We will make peace with them." The chamber exploded with shock. Lords jumped to their feet. Voices shouted over each other. One lord actually laughed, thinking it was a joke. When he saw the Queen's face, his laughter died. "This is madness," Lord Marcus said. His 4 hands were clenched in anger. "We have never made peace with a species that resisted us. It would show weakness. Other species would rebel. The Empire would crumble." "The Empire will crumble anyway if we fight the humans," Ilara replied. Her voice was calm, steady. "Let me tell you what will happen if we try to conquer them." She waved her hand. Holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber. Data, projections, simulations. "We will attack their planet. We will win the first battle. Perhaps the second. But we will not win the third. Because every human we kill will make the others fight harder. Every city we destroy will create 1,000 new enemies. Every victory we claim will cost us more than we can afford." She walked around the circle, looking each lord in the eyes. "Humans do not surrender. This is not propaganda. This is fact. Our telepaths have confirmed it. Their minds are built differently. They experience fear like we do. But it does not stop them. It drives them forward." "Then we will kill them all," another lord said. "Every man, woman, and child. We will burn their planet to ash. And then what?" Ilara asked. "We have studied their technology. Even now, they have ships scattered across space. Colonies on distant moons. Hidden bases we have not found. If we destroy their planet, the survivors will dedicate their existence to revenge. Not for years. Not for centuries. Forever." She returned to the center of the chamber. The holographic images show projections of future wars. Red numbers. Terrible numbers. Our empire is vast, Ilara continued. But it is also stretched thin. We have enemies on every border. Rebellions brewing in a dozen sectors. Resources growing scarce. We cannot afford a war that never ends. And that is what a war with humanity would be. A war that never, ever ends. Lord Marcus stood slowly. His ancient face was troubled. You speak as if these creatures are special. They are primitives. They have barely discovered space travel. They are special, Ilara said. Not because they are strong. Not because they are smart. But because they do not break. In 3,000 years, I have seen every species eventually submit. Some took decades. Some took centuries. But they all broke. Every single one. She paused. The chamber was silent now, listening. Humans will not break. I have looked into their leader's eyes. I have touched the edge of his mind. There is no submission in them. No surrender. Only endless, stubborn defiance. If we fight them, we will be fighting forever. And eventually, they will grow strong enough to fight back. Lady Susan stepped forward. She had been standing in the shadows, waiting. Now she projected new data for the council. Our scientists have confirmed the Queen's assessment, Susan said. Humans adapt faster than any species we have studied. Already, they have begun reverse engineering our technology. Within 1 generation, they will match our weapons. Within 2 generations, they may exceed them. Then we must strike now, Lord Marcus insisted. Before they grow too powerful. If we strike now, we unite them, Ilara said. Right now, humans are divided. They fight among themselves. They distrust each other. But nothing unites them faster than an external enemy. If we attack, we will give them a common cause. We will turn billions of chaotic, divided individuals into a single, focused species with one goal. Destroying us. She let that sink in. The lords shifted uncomfortably in their seats. There is another option, Ilara said. We make peace. We trade. We exchange knowledge. We become allies instead of enemies. In time, they will fight our battles for us. They will protect our borders. They will be a shield against our other enemies. You want to use them as soldiers? A young lord asked. I want to make them partners, Ilara corrected. Humans are warriors, yes, but they are also builders, inventors, dreamers. Our empire has grown stagnant. We have conquered so much that we have forgotten how to grow. Humans never stop growing. Their chaos is their strength. It could be our strength, too. The council debated for hours. Some lords agreed with the queen. Others opposed her fiercely. Arguments flew back and forth like weapons. In the end, Ilara called for a vote. It was close. Closer than any vote in 500 years. But the queen won. The next morning, Jake, Emma, and Ryan were brought before her one last time. But this time, there were no guards. No chains. Just the queen and the 3 humans. I am releasing you, Ilara said. Emma's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why? What is the catch? No catch. I am sending you back to your people with a message. The Valari wish to negotiate. Not as conquerors, but as equals. Jake was silent for a long moment. His brown eyes studied the queen's face. Looking for the lie. Looking for the trap. He found neither. Why? He asked. You could have destroyed us. You still could. Ilara smiled. It was a tired smile. An honest smile. Because I have conquered 100 species, she said. I know when a war can be won. And I know when it cannot. Your people will never stop fighting. Even if we kill you all, your children will rise. And their children's children. You will hunt us across the stars for eternity. She walked to a window. Outside, the The stars burned cold and bright. "I have ruled for 3,000 years," she continued. "In that time, I have never met a species like yours. You are chaos wrapped in flesh. You are hope mixed with madness. You are terrifying and magnificent all at once." She turned back to face them. "Better to make you allies than enemies. Because if humanity ever truly united against us—" She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. They all understood. Jake stepped forward. He removed his helmet. This time, it did not hurt. His lung had healed. His wounds had closed. But the scars remained. They would always remain. "You made the right choice," he said. "Not because we would have won, but because now neither of us has to lose." He extended his hand. A human gesture. A sign of respect and agreement. Ilara looked at the hand. 5 fingers. Soft skin. No claws, no weapons. Just flesh and bone and stubborn. Beautiful will. She reached out with one of her 4 hands and took his. The touch was warm, real. The first step towards something new. That night, a small shuttle left the Valari flagship. Inside were 3 humans. Wounded but alive. Defeated but unbroken. Going home with a message that would change the galaxy. Word spread quickly. The Valari Queen had met the humans. The Valari Queen had looked into their eyes. And the Valari Queen had chosen peace. Other species heard the story. Species that had knelt before the Valari for centuries. Species that had forgotten how to fight. They heard about the humans who would not break. The humans who stood before the most powerful being in the galaxy and refused to kneel. And something stirred in their hearts. Something old. Something forgotten. Something that felt a lot like hope. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 different languages, they whispered the same words. The humans are coming. And they do not kneel. Jake stood at the window of the shuttle, watching the stars stream past. Emma was sleeping. Ryan was checking his wounds one last time. The mission was over. They were going home, but Jake knew this was not an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity had announced itself to the universe. And nothing would ever be the same. He thought about the Queen's words. About chaos and hope and stubborn defiance. About being terrifying and magnificent. He smiled. "We are human," he thought. "And we are just getting started." The shuttle flew on, carrying 3 soldiers, 1 message, and the future of an entire species toward the endless stars.